Alright, hopefully everybody's doing well today, and wanted to do a quick breakdown, probably not quick, it'd probably take a little while to go through this, but kind of a breakdown on how to set driver lineups, how to construct driver lineups, and how to import, export, those types of things in and out of Draftkings, and setting up a 20 different lineups, and hopefully speeding up the process. And if you need access to any of these types of tools and stuff, please let me know, and depending on what's going on, I'll probably be more than happy to share them. So let's kind of get into it. Go into Draftkings, get signed in. I have already signed up. My favorite one to do for most Sundays is the Chromehorn 20 entry max, $4 per entry fee. So, and I've maxed out all 20. So I go to lineups, I go to edit entries, and you'll see here that I have 20 entries set up for the Rate Game Cup Series, and I hit download. This will then create a CVS file. Pull this over here so you guys can see a little better. Make sure it fits the screen. Alright, so what this has on it, it's got the 20 different lineups that you'll construct and where you'll put your drivers into here. Then over here, the main things that you want to be concerned with is the name plus ID, the name, and the salary. So what I do is I copy name plus ID. Here, let me stretch this out so you can see a little better what it looks like. So it's got their name and their ID all into one category. Because if you just put the name in, into this section here, it won't work. So I always do name plus ID. So I'll copy this, and then I will put it into my lineup builder. So I now have everybody's names and everything, and then I come back and I pull their salaries over. Oops, salaries. And pull that in. So now I've got their driver name and their salary. And now what I want here is their starting position. And with this over here, I can now sort by dollar amounts. I mean, I could pull everything here, but I don't have the ID, driver ID number, which is important for Draftkings, and that changes every week. So this whole build-up sheet that I have, I'll show you in a second, won't have their IDs, and it's just too difficult to do. So then rank, I guess I could put in here, start. They really can't see that, but so then I'll copy their starting position down, copy, paste. So what this really does allow me to do is highlight, let's say I want to take Kyle Larson. So I'll copy, come over here, Control Shift V, paste. So that'll put them in there, and then I can just kind of, do it that way. So, you take the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drivers. Oops. Copy. Control Shift V. So that puts all the drivers in. As we can see, that takes us to a salary of $63,900, $13,900 over what we allotted to spend. So that won't work. So what this will do is, as I'm constructing my driver lineups, it'll show me how much money I have left to spend, and also, so let's do that again. It'll also show me here their the average starting position. Not that that's crucial, but you know, the biggest thing I want to know is, do I have lots of place differentials? Am I going more off of potential dominators? Am I balanced in the middle? And those types of things. So we can also go look at Cup optimal lineups. So in my optimal lineups here, I can see at Daytona a 25.7 starting average finish, 27.5, 19.2, 13.8, 16.3, 16.2, 14.7, depending on the track, how many laps they're running, how many dominators I think they're going to have, and those types of things. The starting average position ends up being something I pay very close attention to. So I like to have, once I have a completed lineup, what the average is. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Let's go back. All right, so clean slate. So on the left-hand side over here, if you've watched my other videos, you'll see where I have sorted drivers into what I consider to be dominators, place differential guys, and fill-ins. So typically what I like to do, depending on what track and how many dominators I need or how many place differential guys I need, this is where I'll start to build that process. So in my video, it was 2 to potentially 3 dominators. 3 is going to be a little tough because of pricing, but what I will start with is 2 dominators, then I'll do at least 2 place differential guys, and then I'll take my fill-in guys and fill in the rest. Now you can kind of intermingle if all of a sudden you're finding that you used, you know, let's say a Joey Logano, and a, let's say, here's another inexpensive Ryan Blaney. Find Ryan Blaney over here. And then let's say I went with Michael McDowell for one of my place differential guys. And I kind of put the place differential or cost savings at the bottom and my more expensive guys at the top typically. That way I can kind of just see how it's getting built up. So another inexpensive Chris Buescher, we'll kind of bring him in. So as we can see, I now have 2 spots left available, and I've got $19,700 to build off of for those 2. I mean, that almost, I mean, that literally you could put Kevin Harvick and Brett Keselowski in. So literally, you know, you can copy those, move that in, and now I've spent the entire max, and I potentially have 4 dominators. As you can see, Joey Logano is a potential place differential. Brad is also a slight PD upside with, in my opinion, Chris Buescher and Michael McDowell. So we went definitely low end on drivers, very well balanced, 16th average starting position. You know, I may actually end up keeping that lineup in at this point. It gives me a lot of spread of drivers that are going to come potentially from the middle to rear, to guys that have done extremely well in the past at Charlotte. So we'll just go ahead and kind of hold on to that one and kind of take a look. You know, so that's kind of how I start this lineup. You know I want to have a decent amount of Kyle Larson, even though him starting first kind of scares me. Actually, you know what? I think in my video, Kyle Busch ended up being the number 1. So let's go over here and sort this again by rank. Yeah, so Kyle Busch is what I consider to be the number 1 rank. And this all comes from, so let's kind of take you behind the scenes here a little bit. So this literally is how this all gets created. Is, I'm looking at recent track history to start, and it's got the number of starts, average starting spot, finish, their average place differential, how many wins in the last 5, top 5s, top 10s, top 15s, top 20s. And it's got their average laps that they've led, average fast laps, and their average Draftkings points. And this is strictly because it's just recent track history. I look at the last 5 races at that particular track. So my next set of groupings is recent similar track history. And what this is looking at is, we can pull this up over here, similar tracks, 1.5 miles. It's showing Charlotte, Kansas, Kentucky, and Texas. Kentucky is still prominent because they raced there last year. That will eventually fall off. And what this is showing is I've literally got Las Vegas from 2021, the fall 20, Texas 20, Atlanta 20 in 2021, Kentucky, Kansas, and Charlotte. So with all 10 of those combined, that then kind of gives me their average starting spots and finishing spots, their DraftKings points and averaging them out, their fastest laps, laps led, average finishes, and I use this sheet to use as my transfer sheet over to this sheet. So at this point, this transfers over. So this gives me all the same stuff that it did for Charlotte for all similar tracks. And then I look at the current trends. So I've done the same thing. The last 10 races is what I consider to be their current trends. And so what this does is if somebody was performing not so well last year but is doing much better this year, or moved teams, or somebody like maybe like Kyle Larson, who ended up going through most of the year on suspension and has come back, this will kind of put into place how well, Kyle Larson's just tearing it up this year. So this will put all of his current stats and new drivers. So Chase Briscoe is new to the Cup Series. Anthony Alfredo is new to the Cup Series. David Starr for this race is new to the Cup Series. Even though David Starr isn't going to pull any information over because he hasn't raced in Cups in forever. But then I take this, and this all gets multiplied out. So, I'm giving 10 points per win at the track, 5 points at wins for similar tracks, 2 points at current trends for wins, and the same thing for top 5s, top 10s, top 20s, laps led, DraftKings average, and all that. And then I come over here, and then I calculate place differential upside, and I can calculate this if I think it's a track that's going to be really heavy on place differentials. I may bump this up into the 25 or 30 point range for place differential, and what that does is gives 30 points per spot. I can lower it down to 1 or kind of whatever. So, I think this is kind of middle of the pack, so 15 is kind of where I landed on this, and that's just a judgment call. And then if there's any corrective action that I need to make, this is where I use some of my gut feelings. Like Chase Briscoe just did not have a whole lot of Cup points coming over, so I gave him 250. Same thing without Anthony Alfredo. I don't like David Starr or James Davidson, so I didn't give him anything anyways because I'm not going to start them at all. I did give William Byron a little bit of bump here, just because he is just on just a consistency tear so far this year. So then that puts us into this rank, and all this gets transferred over to my rank sheet. So then after qualifying, the qualifying numbers come down to here, and then from there I kind of build my dominator and place differentials and then my filling guys, and it's pretty much just not using anybody in this grouping really. I may have 1 or 2 with Bubba Wallace, but so that kind of is how I end up building this out. Really, I don't typically like to go much past 25 on my ranking sheet. when I'm building my lineups, but occasionally you got to dip down in to get your to get some salary relief. So once again, that's kind of how this all gets kind of tabulated and brought together. So then we kind of come over here and we just kind of start building. So, you know, I'm looking at Kyle Busch being somebody who I think is the #1 ranking. So I'll kind of copy a bunch of Kyle Busch here. You know, and I'll just kind of, I'll start it with, you know, what I consider, let's do 4 lineups with him in there. So let's just kind of slide this over so we look at 4 different lineups. So then I'll take Martin Truex. And I'll copy. And I'll put Martin into that one. Then I'll go to the 3rd, which is Denny Hamlin. Copy. Next in line, Brad Keselowski. And then Kevin Harvick. Alright, so what I've got here are kind of a build of 4 lineups that, you know, Kyle Busch being who I consider to be the #1 favorite for at least Draftkings. Maybe not necessarily to win the race, but he will potentially go up lead laps. He's going to move from 20th up to a top 5 spot, which is going to give him place differential. He's going to end up finishing, you know, in the top 5, which is going to give him 30 some odd points or more. Let's take a look. How many points does that get? Yeah, so if he finishes in the top 5, it's 39 to 45 points. So, you know, between that, his place differential, so somebody who moves, I mean, so here Chase Elliott started 19th, finished 1st. Place differential of 18, gave him 18 differential points, 45 finishing points, and he didn't really have a lot of fast laps or laps led. So the majority of his points came from finishing spot and place differential. So that gave him a 77.65, which, looking down the line, is the highest number for the Charlotte 2nd race last year. So that's kind of how it ends up, how I kind of look at things is where, #1, where do I think they're going to end up finishing? Are they going to be able to lead laps? Are they going to have fast laps? And do they have place differential upside? You know, somebody like, you know, like a Kevin Harvick, who is starting in the 5th spot. You know, there's not much of a place differential upside. If anything, there's a place differential negative that is there for him. But I think Kevin's going to be strong enough that he could easily start and finish in the 5th, and he could actually end up winning the race if everything works out and he stays out of trouble, which Kevin typically does. He's usually a pretty smart driver. But so, you know, starting 5th, finishing 5th isn't going to give him any place differential upside, but if he finishes 5th, it's going to give him 39 points. If he leads a few laps or has some fast laps, you know, that's going to put him in the mid to high 40s. And let's go back to, let's look at the Coke 600 from last year. Yeah, so I mean, here's Brad Keselowski at the top. He led 27 laps, hit 27 fast laps, 21 lead laps, started 9th, finished 1st. So that may not be the best. Let's look at Martin Truex Jr. So we've got, he started 8th, finished 7th, so he only had 1 place differential, which is only given 1 point, which isn't much of anything. But because he finished 7th, he got 37 points. So as we slide over, you know, we see his fast laps and laps led, plus that 1. I mean, that gave him an 84.95, which ended up being the highest. So place differential plays into it, but laps led and fast laps and being dominators is huge. I mean, you know, we can even go down here and look at Alex Bowman, who had a pit stop. He came in and pitted with 3 laps left and just never could get back to the front, so he ended up finishing 20th. Started 12th, so he lost 8 points, but he led 164 laps and had 52 fast laps. So because he dominated early in the race, you know, he ends up 23 finish points, -8 on differential points, but he got 41 points for leading laps and 23.4 for fast laps, gave him a 79.4. So it's not necessarily always bad as long as you think that the driver's going to get up, lead laps early, and, you know, not have a devastating day to where you fall from 5th to 40th or 5th to 38th for this weekend. Being a dominator could actually end up still being a saving grace and having them potentially fall into the optimal lineup. All right, with all that being said, let's kind of get back to over here. All right, so because Kyle Busch was my biggest PD upside that I felt, we'll skip him and we'll kind of move down to my next 2. So Chris Buescher and Matt DiBenedetto. I'm not going to put them in all 4 lineups. I'm going to kind of spread it out a little bit, but we'll start with Chris Buescher first, starting 27th at 6,700. And I like to put these guys kind of at the bottom so I know which guys I had and where they were at. All right, so Chris Buescher, we'll put him in that one, and let's put him in this one. And there is no rhyme or reason to this, just like there's no rhyme or reason to what optimal lineups end up falling into the optimal lineup. You know, Quinn Hoff is, I think it was Quinn Hoff. There's one guy that I've always said, there's a group of guys that I say never make the optimal lineups. And if we go back to my optimal lineup, I've got a tracker that shows how many optimal lineups these guys have fallen into. Yeah, Quinn Hoff has fallen into 2 optimal lineups this year out of 14 races. So, you know, I say don't use these guys, but there are spots where they do end up falling. One of them was, let's see, where did Quinn fall into an optimal lineup? I know, boring. It's not what you came for. But I like to explain it out a little bit to kind of show you what ends up happening on these builds. Oh, here's one. Martinsville. You know, he started 29th, finished 24th. He didn't have any fast laps, didn't have any laps led. He only had 23 points. But because we had 3 dominators in that race, and they ate up all the money at the top, you gotta fill it in somewhere. And that happened to be Quinn Hoff and Josh Bilicki. There was one other one where Quinn made optimal lineup. So some of these guys at the bottom, sometimes you just have to use. Sometimes you just get lucky, but consistently more times than not, they're going to miss the optimal lineup. But let's get back to this build. All right, so as we're looking here, so next in line, Matt DiBenedetto. Let's kind of come down and find Matty D. Copy. We'll put him in here. Let's say we'll put him in here. We're probably going to need a little bit of cost savings. So let's go with Michael McDowell in a few. 5,800. And we'll do these 2. So we're not. What I do like to do is have a little bit of differentiations on these. So that way I'm not creating identical lineups or have 5 lineups that are all just different by one driver. There are some guys that do that, and if you happen to get lucky and hit that particular driver lineup with one separation, you could have a huge day, but I think the risk to reward is really great when you're doing that. You can do that if you're running 150 lineups and you're actually running 150 lineups. But I like to do this 20, so I like to have a little bit of differentiation in my lineups. Whereas we'll see at the end here, you know, I'll still have one guy that'll still be in 45 or 50% of the lineups, maybe even 60, if it ends up being that he's the cost savings and best potential for place differential, or maybe potentially a Kyle Busch. If I can fit him into more lineups, I really like where he's starting. He's not going to cost me a lot in place differential, and the upside on him is really big. So, all right, now we need one more PD. Let's do one Ryan Preece. And let's do one we'll do one Eric Jones. Alright, so as we can see across here, I now have about $8,000 or so to spend on each driver. So now this is where my fill-in guys come in, because that's typically where these guys fall. These are guys that I think potentially could finish well, maybe not necessarily give me much place differential upside. As you can see down here, Corey LaJoie and Anthony Alfredo provide us some place differential, and some price savings, but typically they will finish about where they're starting, if not lose a little bit. But because of their cost savings, they could end up allowing us to have some more dominators in our lineup. So let's kind of do that. Let's look at a Corey LaJoie for a few. Let's do him in this one and this one, and we'll do an Anthony Alfredo. I'm not huge on Anthony. This is his first 600-mile race. Alright, so that gives us, that puts us right into this. I mean, the best we have is 11,000, so I mean, we can put in pretty much Denny Hamlin. So I mean, we can really fit in some more potential. So, Chase Elliott here, put him in, let's see, I like him here, doesn't fit there, he does fit here. In fact, I'll tell you what, I like it here, get rid of this one, and I can put a Denny Hamlin in, over here. And at 9,900, I can do an Alex Bowman. So, alright, so now I've got those four built out, with Kyle Busch being my one consistent through all of those. And what my spreadsheet does is transfers all that down to here. So what'll end up happening is here towards the end, I'll just copy, and then I will go to the Excel spreadsheet, and I can just paste, and then we save, and then we upload. So at this point, I'm just going to kind of continue to run through these and allow you guys to watch. I'll probably end up fast forwarding some of it, but that's kind of how I end up constructing and building these lineups out. And once again, I'm trying to get 2 to 3 dominators, 2 to 3 place differentials, and see what we come up with at the end. So bear with me here and just kind of hang out and watch. Alright, and I have now gotten all my 20 lineups in. I do occasionally like to create team lineups. So Penske, a Hendrick, and a Joe Gibbs Racing. Now to do a full Hendrick lineup, I did end up having to put Garrett Smitley and Quinn Hoff in there, and just because Quinn had made 2 optimal lineups in the past, starting 32nd, I decided to go ahead and try to put him in. And same thing over here, I put Justin Haley because he ran fairly well in the Xfinity race yesterday, and would have had a top 10 finish if not for a late race accident. So that's the reason why I ended up using guys that I typically would not, and I couldn't have gotten all 4 Hendrick cars or all 4 Joe Gibbs Racing cars without putting in those bottom of the barrel guys. Over here, Penske gave me a little bit more room, and I could actually, even because he's considered part of it, Matt DiBenedetto at 7,500. I could switch him out. Yeah, let's do that. Switch him out with Eric Almirola. Still gives me $400. And then I realized that as much as I don't like typically taking the pole sitter, Kyle Larson could easily start from the front, lead a ton of laps, which he has done. And then so I used my other top, Kyle Busch and Alex Bowman, who had led a ton of laps last year in the Coke 600. So that's the reason why. And then I put some fillers in here. So I guess I could even, not thrilled about Chase Briscoe, but I hadn't used him really anywhere else starting 21st. But so I was able to do a fairly balanced. So then what also I have down here is, as I'm filling things in, it's filling in my percentages used of these guys over here. So at that point I can then kind of take a look and go, okay, who am I heaviest on? Well, I'm heaviest on Chris Buescher in 55% of my lineups. So half my lineups could easily get destroyed or ruined if Chris Buescher ends up wrecking out earlier. But since he is starting 27th, the worst he will lose is 9 or 10 points. But because I'm able to get in higher lineups and potentially 3 dominators with some other PD upsides involved, I mean, heck, with this one we got 4 potential dominators in. So that's kind of the reason I've got that going on. So I did do a Penske, a Hendrick, and a Joe Gibbs Racing, and then I put one together for Kyle Larson just because he is my guy, and as much as I try not to bet strictly on my guy, I feel he's got the car and the capabilities this year to potentially do what Martin Truex did 4 or 5 years ago and have a perfect race. But I don't like him overall to suggest people to put him into too many lineups. That could come back to backfire, but I think the downside is about equal to the upside with him, where typically like a Kyle Busch, there's a lot of upside and a little bit of downside. He did get to practice this week, even though it was just for an hour. That's why he took the number 1 starting spot. So, needless to say, we've got the 20 lineups done. I've checked my percentages off. So I now can transfer all of these guys over to my spreadsheet. So, quick, easy copy paste. So then I'll save it in my Draftkings folder, and I'll change it to, oops, Charlotte Spring 21. Okay, I'll save that, now I will go here, upload. And I did want to make sure I showed you something. Draftkings is smart enough to tell you if you've got somewhere I think I put in multiple, put in a driver twice, I thought. Alright, well, what we'll do here is we will create one just so you can see that you can't, Draftkings won't let you do multiple, oops, hit print. So let's go down here, and somebody's at my front door, probably for my son. That's okay though, he'll get it. And do this again, save. Draftkings, upload. Cup Charlotte. Alright, it did have two. So it tells us here that you've got multiple people in lineups. So Chris Buescher is in both, but also exceeds salary limit. So it will kick you out for salary limit, and also lineup includes player used more than once. Same thing here. Oh, that Eric Almirola twice. So I had done that. I didn't know if I had or not. So what we'll do is we'll go back to our sheet, and we'll go up here and put Michael McDowell back in. So put that back in, and the other one was row 13, Truex, Brad, Ricky. Truex, Brad, Ricky, Eric. Okay, so we'll fix Eric Almirola. Take him out, leave us 8,100. How many Cole Costers do we have? 2? Yeah, we can put Cole in for that one. Oh, nope, Cole Coster. Back. Copy. Paste. Alright, so now we'll copy this again. And then we will go to here. Paste. Save. Draftkings. Upload. This one again. And as we can see, successfully uploaded 20 of 20. Alright, so let's minimize this. The reason I like to do this is that then I can, as the race is going on, I can kind of keep track of who I've got and how much percentage I have of them. Alright, so that looks good there. So then I copy and paste this, highlight here, data, sort Z through. So now it shows me my highest percentage guy, Chris Buescher, Michael McDowell, Denny Hamlin, Brad, Kyle, Martin Truex, and so on. So even though I considered Kyle Busch to be in my #1 spot, he ended up being just a tick behind Brad and Denny, Martin. So this kind of shows my spread. I like to have this as a glance to see kind of who I've got and those types of things. Then of course, as the race goes on, I can always come here, or as the race goes on, you can actually look at Draftkings and see which ones are performing well. So that kind of wraps up how I do my lineup builds and get them imported into Draftkings in a bulk manner. So I'll clear this out also, because this will end up being my reference point to past races. And then I use this over here to build my optimal lineups after it's all said and done. So now that all cleared up, we're ready to go racing for this weekend. Once again, thanks for tuning in to this tutorial. And if you find this information worthwhile, and anybody else that's getting started into DraftKings or is looking to potentially make it a little easier to build multiple lineups and those types of things, make sure you share, subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell icon so you get notified, all that fun stuff, and share across all sorts of all the social medias. And good luck this weekend. Coke 600, longest race of the year, and one of the greatest days in motorsports with the Indianapolis 500 going on currently as I put these lineups together. So good luck this weekend, and stay tuned for a follow-up on how well my lineups ended up doing this week. I'll try to put that up Monday or Tuesday. Good luck. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you soon.